All right. Hi, my name's William Douglas. I go by Bill most of the time. And I wanted to make a video today regarding how illness can be treated by an increased spirituality. And uh, and I'm not talking about religion. In fact, you don't even have to be religious. You don't have to believe in a, divine being or anything like that in order to have these spiritual experiences. Because what science is showing is they're energetic experiences. Now, I'm not diminishing those of you of faith who connect it with the divine. That's perfectly fine. But the point that I'm making is you don't have to be religious to have these experiences. And what the science showed me, it was a combination of life experience and mind-body practice and the science. And the combination of these two things really expanded the way that I, thought about spirituality and science and, health and mind-body practices give you a chance to investigate these things on a personal level. But then I spent years talking to the leading scientists in consciousness and mind-body. And that was because I was putting 40 years of science together to create a book called the second edition of the Gospel of Science, mind-blowing new science on ancient truths to heal our stress lives and planet. And that's the culmination of all this science. And so to get to back to the subject of this of this video, uh, the point of this video is that what in my life really helped me get the most out of mind body practices and the power of the healing power of consciousness as well as every other aspect of our lives was what science has revealed to me is that the brain can go into different states of consciousness, and one of those states of consciousness is called gratitude consciousness. And gratitude consciousness, it's not like a groveling kind of, oh, I'm not worthy, oh, I'm so grateful kind of thing. And that's kind of how my religious training led me to believe it. I don't know if anybody said it specifically like that, but I think a lot of us, when we're going to Sunday school and Bible school and all that kind of stuff, we have this uh, feeling that gratitude is, like I said, kind of a groveling, kind of have mercy on me kind of thing, even though I'm so horrible. Original sin, all that kind of stuff. But what the science shows is this gratitude state of consciousness is just enjoying the experience, being present and really feeling, really having the experiences of our lives. And, that could be from just elation and inspiration and joy. But it could also be, incredible sorrow or, whatever it is that we're going through at that particular time, just being present and being in the center of it. Now, science also talks about heart-centered consciousness. Now, both of these states, gratitude consciousness and heart-centered consciousness, they're connected. And also, what they both are shown to do is to have incredible healing effects on the body. In fact, some of the research shows that these states of consciousness actually physically change the molecular structure of the heart and the brain. So that's pretty that's pretty powerful effect. And so this gratitude consciousness, it's enjoying, for example, right now, just enjoying this experience of just, being present, me and you together here. And I've done enough videos where I start to feel a connection. And the physics shows that, that may be a real reality because our consciousness doesn't stop at the skull and it resonates out. Rupert Sheldrake's done some great research on morphic resonance, how our consciousness sends out echoes through reality, and they become kind of like pathways. And so, anyway, we're when we go into these states of gratitude consciousness, where we're really enjoying the moment, really experiencing it. Like if we're having a drink, I teach my grandchildren this. Okay, so if you have a drink handy, just go ahead and take that drink. But before you do, I'll explain to you what we're going to do. And again, I teach my grandkids this. I'm always trying to teach them how to be mindful, be present. And, since I've learned all these science on how profoundly it can, maintain and improve and heal our health. And so that's really what drove me to spirituality was I wanted to be healthier. And I don't lead a perfect life. I don't eat everything that's completely good for me all the time or things like that. In fact, I'm drinking a cup of coffee right now. I try to drink a lot of hot ginger water with lemon, but I do like enjoy a coffee now and then. I just try not to have too much of it because it's easy for me to do that. So this gratitude consciousness, what we're going to do here is we're going to take a drink of whatever it is we're drinking and do what I encourage my grandchildren to do. I say, do you feel that silky feeling in your mouth? Do you really feel that? And then when you swallow it, do you feel it going down your throat? And do you feel it going down, down, down into your stomach? And my oldest granddaughter, she was around 3, maybe 4, maybe almost 4, and she was visiting, and so I asked her that, and I didn't think she was paying any attention to me. A kid that age, their minds are bouncing all over the place. So I'd completely lost track of the discussion that I just had with her about mindful drinking. And then, I just happened to be looking out the window, and she was in kind of my cross gaze. And man, I saw her taking a drink, but I wasn't even thinking about the conversation. And when she took that drink, she goes like this. She goes, I feel that gong gong. And so this is gratitude consciousness. Just enjoying anything, anything. It could be the sunlight, coming through the trees or glistening off of the shiny car in front of you at the red light, or, just the beautiful blue sky and the clouds or the breeze, the summer breeze and how that feels. And so that gratitude consciousness is very healing. And so that's what I'm talking about a spirituality. And you don't have to be religious. You don't have to, like I said, you don't have to believe in a divine being. You could just think of it as the universe, and that the universe is this field of energy, and it we were when we enjoy it, our body responds well to it. So that's a form of gratitude when we enjoy it. So, like for example, when I'm teaching a mind body class. Uh, I mean, it's nice when people, come up and say, "Oh, that's great. Oh, this is such a great program that you're teaching," or something like that. That's really great. Uh, any human being's going to enjoy it when they get something like that, and we don't get it a lot, as teachers. So if you teach out there and you're not getting it, don't feel like you're don't feel like you're any less than anybody else. But no, it's just it's when my students report to me that they got healed of heart disease or that they don't need, pre-diabetes or diabetes medications anymore, or they need much less of it, or they don't need their hypertension meds anymore, or they're sleeping better at night, or, they're just seeing a more positive view of life and reality, a more reality-based view of life, really, when you look into the science. This world is not the horror show that we're sold on the news every night. I'm not saying that there aren't things that are happening in the planet that we should be concerned about, but you just get this kind of hyperbolic fear thing from mainstream media. And so you miss the beauty and the magic of our lives and of our planet. And so becoming more and more aware of how magical we are, and I'm talking about science, I'm talking about some amazing science. uh, I share it in the Gospel of Science, second edition, which just came out on Audible, and I wanted to put it out there so that people could see that you don't have. There's no divisions or anything here. You don't have to be religious to enjoy these kind of spiritual, expansive experiences, and you can just think of it as the energetic nature of the universe. It doesn't have to have any divine persona or anything like that. And uh, but religious people, you can incorporate it into your view of reality through your religion. I've kind of done that with. I was raised a Lutheran, and And I was a really good Sunday school student. I was really interested, but I was looking for answers. I wasn't really just there to kind of accept dogma that was thrown at me. And so I was always asking my Sunday school teachers questions that they couldn't answer. You know, one of them told my parents I was the most difficult student he had. And so, you know, there were things about dogmatic religion that made less sense to me. And so I kind of drifted away from that for a while and, you know, just kind of got lost really on all levels. But then when I started practicing mind body practices, it started reminding me of things, you know, like when you're a little kid, you know, it's like, you know, part of religion is gratitude, you know, being grateful. And, uh, and then I realized maybe that what they were trying to tell us was that when we just appreciate our lives, you know, just appreciate the moments and enjoy the moments, that sends a vibration through the body and the consciousness that improves our health. And then the other thing that I found too from the gratitude consciousness is that I'm always just kind of expressing a feeling of being grateful for things, or at least I try to remember to do that. You know, I get lost in all the same tangles everybody else does. But once you learn the science, it starts bringing you back because you just keep thinking, oh, I'm putting money in the health bank, you know, and plus you'll find everything's just more fun. So one of the things I started doing was I started smiling to myself when I saw myself in the mirror. And, you know, at first it felt kind of stilted and stupid, but over time, it just became like a natural thing. And so anytime I glance over in the mirror, you know, I have to give myself a little smile before I move on because I'm just used to doing it now. You know, and I would feel rude, you know, not to smile to that person in the mirror. And, you know, and then I just stopped looking for all the flaws. I guess part of it, you know, is I'm almost 70 years old. So when you get up in these years here, you know, it's really easy to start staring at flaws. You know, the gratitude consciousness shows us, you know, if we're just kind of grateful that we have this vehicle that can do whatever it does, and trust me, no matter what your vehicle's abilities are, you have way more abilities than somebody else. That's teaching for nearly 40 years in hospitals. That's given me a real sense of gratitude just to be, you know, walking and breathing and enjoying the sun, you know, and whatever. You know, and even the tasks and the work that we do, you know, just enjoying those, kind of getting into it and being one with the experience. And yeah, so you know, I do it because it contributes to my health. And but then it just starts to make life more fun. Uh, you know, it's like I don't know, every time I look at myself in the mirror, or I mean, I don't look at myself in the mirror like I did when I was in my 20s. But when I just happen to glance at the mirror for some reason, not to stare at it or anything, but when I just happen to glance at it, when I give myself this smile, it just has this little ornery glint to it. You know, like me and you are in on this, you know, this whole thing that we're playing, this whole game of life. And so if you start doing that with yourself in the mirror, you know, and that person in the mirror is like your best friend because it's the vehicle that's carrying this consciousness through this life. And so that learning the science on gratitude consciousness was like a huge part of cultivating these kind of affirmative, whatever, uh, affirmation building practices like this. You know, and just enjoying, you know, the taste of the food. There's been research on mindful eating, and people can lose significant weight, not from changing anything that they do or eat or anything like that, but just from eating mindfully, you know, taking a bite and really, you know, tasting, you know, and feeling the texture and enjoying the aroma of it and really being present with that food. Now I got to confess, I a lot of times when me and my wife are eating dinner, we're watching YouTube. So it's not like we're completely present, but from what I understand from mindfulness training, that's a really good thing to do is to get away from, you know, distractions. But you know, even though as I'm watching something, I tend to be more mindful. You know, I tend when I put it in my mouth, I just kind of, you know, tune out on the whatever I'm watching and just really feel it and taste it, you know, and having that whole experience. And so yeah, people have lost significant weight from it. And I don't know, you know, really had a pretty optimum weight, since I became more of a mindful eater. Because one of the things that happens when you eat mindfully is you just have time to feel what you're feeling when you eat, and a lot of it's pleasure, but also it's just, like if I mean, I don't eat corn chips. I don't like to eat corn that's not organic. I just I don't like the genetically modified foods if I can avoid them. And I mean, I'm not super strict about these things. I know when I go out or to a friend's house, I may not be getting, this kind of food. But I just feel like if we don't subject our body to stress, biological, chemical type stress on a regular basis, and we give it a break when we're at home, then it has time to process things and heal from things. I don't get too hung up with the precision. And if I do eat something that I know is not that great for me, I just enjoy it. I just eat it mindfully. But the thing that I was getting to was is that one of the things that happens when we start to eat more mindfully is like when I eat chips and I eat these cassava flour chips cooked in avocado oil, which is, it's not health food, but it's way better than, the normal stuff. And I think I get them at Trader Joe's, maybe Costco. You can look around for them. But anyway, so when I'm eating those, and mindfully, taking little bites and really feeling the texture and really enjoying, that whole chip instead of just whomp, whomp, gulp, because I was really good at that. And and so then what happens is, instead of sitting there eating like a half bag of them or a whole bag of them, which I was fully capable of, at one time, uh, now it's like, I'll eat like a quarter of a bag or maybe a third of a bag, sometimes. And then you have time to feel how it feels in your stomach. And then something tells you, okay, that's enough of that. And so then you end up, putting the bag away. And then maybe having a piece of fruit or something later. And that's one thing is I eat sugar things. There was a time when I went through an illness and I wasn't eating sugar. But as I got healthier, I got less precise in my diet. And again, I just enjoy it. And I teach my grandkids when you're eating sugary snacks, eat them mindfully. And my granddaughter, when she's eating the dinner that my wife makes, and my wife is from Hong Kong, she makes really delicious Chinese food. And when she's eating the dinner, my granddaughter will start eating it mindfully. And I say, it's okay to eat it mindfully, but what I want you to do is to really eat mindfully when you're having sweets because both my granddaughters got busted for having a whole bunch of empty candy wrappers underneath their beds. And it's funny because it happened to both of them at the same time. They both got caught by their parents. One of them lives in Kansas and the other one lives in Florida. And so they both got caught at the same time all those time far away with all those candy wrappers. And so I started teaching them, when you take a little bite of that chocolate or whatever, just take a little tiny sliver and just taste it in your mouth. And you have more sugar sensors in the tip of your tongue. And so, but you have them everywhere, but you have more in the tip of your tongue. And so then you really taste it, on the tip of your tongue there, and then enjoy it, and then take another little sliver. And then by the time you get through with that, you feel like you've had a lot of candy and you're less likely to just grab another Reese's Pieces and just gulp it down. And so the science on this is really solid. And then the other thing is the heart-centered consciousness. The research on heart-centered consciousness, that's where we're feeling more than thinking. We just we let our heart open. And most mind-body practices, they'll take you here if you really get deep into them. Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, meditation, mindfulness, just letting that heart center open. And our heart is huge. We're taught that we live in these little tiny three-dimensional bodies, but actually we're huge. Our energetic body is huge, and this is all science. HeartMath Institute, heartmath.org, they've done a lot of research on heart-centered consciousness, and the heart actually provides more data to our consciousness than the brain does. It goes more this way than it goes that way. And so this heart-centered consciousness is really powerful and profound. And we get into it by in my classes when I teach people to take a breath and then just let their shoulders, their body just let go. And then just feel that breath filling from down here all the way up. Not straining at it too much, but just opening. And then on the sighing exhale, just surrendering, just letting go. And letting the heart start to let go. And just open. Because heart math has determined that they could measure the electromagnetic emanations of the heart 16 feet away, so 32 feet across. So the heart's 32 feet across, electromagnetically measurable. And that's just the beginning of it. It gets, much larger than that. And the research on all this stuff is so profound, so beautiful. But anyway, that opening heart. And then what on a consciousness level, what the heart-centered consciousness is it's when we're feeling, when we're in a state of feeling instead of thinking. When we're thinking, the pineal gland, the center of the brain, there's just a slight tension in the center of the brain on the pineal gland because we're kind of trying to hold control. So when we were in school, we were in more of a meditative state up to a certain age, maybe 9 years old or something like that, and then we really start to lose touch with that meditative state. But as infants, we're in a deep delta. Like almost sleep state, meditative state, up to about 2 years old. And then we start to go into more theta, and theta is a very deep meditation. So monks in monasteries in Tibet, that meditate all the time, they might go into alpha, theta, uh, mind brainwave states a lot, and that's where we're at as children. And that's why children are so beautiful. That's why they heal so fast. That's why they learn so fast. That's why they have such an exuberance for life. They're in that higher state of consciousness or that deeper, more profound, coherent state of consciousness. But then as we start getting educated, start getting socialized, we start being told to pay attention and to focus. And we get in trouble in school if we're not, or at home. And, but at that age, our brains are still able to go into those meditative states quite easily. And they spend a lot of time there if left alone. And so one of the top schools in the world, I think the top education system in the world, it's a Nordic country. I can't remember which one. But anyway, they were interviewing the educators in that country when they were determined to be the number one education system. And they asked them, how do you schedule your students' homework to find out how, what their secret was. And they said, oh, our students don't have homework. They don't have homework. When they get out of school, they're done. They can go let their minds just go out and do whatever they want to do. And that's when we're in the most healing, that's when we're in the most powerful consciousness state. Einstein said that play is the most powerful form of consciousness. And that's what all this science and all this data and all this research shows. So when we go into heart-centered consciousness, it's that gratitude consciousness, like that mindfulness practice that I was talking about, where we're drinking and just feeling the silk, feeling the cool or the warm, going down our throats and, down, 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 feeling all that. That's heart-centered consciousness. And it's not word consciousness. It's not verbal. The left brain, that's where the verbal center is. And so when we go into verbal consciousness or control consciousness, the pineal gland in the center of the brain tightens just slightly. There's just a slight tension in there. And so when we practice just letting the mind sigh and just letting go of control, and if you do that with your eyes closed, just sighing, just letting go of control, letting go of control, let the mind just let go and drift. Now, it can be a challenge because we've been trained. We've had it ingrained in us to be present, to be in control, be in charge, all that kind of stuff all the time. And so this is a real stretch, but it's not hard once we just start playing at it. Just letting the mind, the energy field of the mind, the brain, everything, just sigh, just let go. So feeling the letting go rather than thinking of trying to let go. Just feeling that drift. The mind just kind of drifts into neutral. And it may just be there for a moment, and that's okay. We just keep playing at it, and then we get more and more adept at it. And we can let those kind of drifting moments last longer. And being out in nature really facilitates this too. So if we can get out in nature, that's a kind of meditative practice as well. But we're letting go of the verbal center, and we're just going into that state of drifting consciousness. And then we're just open and present, and then we're feeling. And that's the heart-centered consciousness. And so this heart-centered consciousness, again, that's a profoundly healing state of consciousness. And it so profoundly affects us that they can see molecular changes in the heart and the brain when we go into that heart-centered consciousness. And so these become like life practices, and it's all science. It's all science. You don't have to be religious to do this stuff. So now, when I first started practicing gratitude consciousness, like I said, I was, smiling in the mirror. But what I was going to lead up to, and I got kind of distracted with that, was that, like, for example, when I'm finished doing my hot shower, when I'm washing and everything, and even when I'm washing, I'm just enjoying how it feels, just the feeling and the sensation of it and the warmth of the water. But before I finish, I always turn the water on just as hot as I can stand it. And then I turn my back to it and I just let it hit right here on my shoulders and my uh, lower neck, because, that's where I carry a lot of stress. Probably most people do. And then I just let it just pound on me there. And when it's doing it, I'm just feeling it. And it's like, oh God, oh, that feels so good because I'm 100%, or I'm a lot, maybe not 100%, but I'm so present. And I'm just feeling it. I'm just reveling in the pleasure of it. And then what I do is I go, oh God. Oh, thank you. That feels so good. Now, you don't have to be religious to do this. It's just a phrase that I use. And, like I said, I grew up as a Lutheran. And so if you're religious, if you're Buddhist or Hindu or Catholic or Lutheran or, Jewish or Muslim, Islamic or, whatever, it just doesn't matter. You can or can't have a religious connotation to it. You can or can't have a spiritual connotation to it. It's energetic. The whole universe is energy. And so when our consciousness goes into these states, it affects this energetic nature of our being. And actually, it ripples out around us as well. So it can actually change the world around us, which is a whole other beautiful aspect of this. And so, again, that gratitude consciousness is just really, really powerful. And then the heart-centered consciousness, feeling rather than thinking. So anytime you're doing anything, anytime you're walking, or, you can just go into that state where you're just, when you feel a breeze, just really feeling it. And then, like I say, I always think, I found the magic formula for me is, when I notice something like that, like if I'm going for a walk and it's kind of a little warm maybe, and then you turn that corner and go down the street, and then the breeze comes. And then when I feel that breeze, I just go, oh God, that feels so good. And if I'm walking with somebody, I'll just say it out loud. I'll go, oh man, that breeze feels gorgeous. And then I'm just really feeling it, going into that state. And or when I'm sitting out and the sun's just, that those beams just come sparkling through the trees. And I'll just think to myself, or if somebody's sitting there, I'll share it with them. I'll say, oh, that's beautiful. Isn't that beautiful? And then I feel it. So the magic formula is you notice it, and that's where meditative practices, Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, meditation, mindfulness, that's where they come in, because they slow down the heart, they slow down the brain, they slow down those urgent stress chemicals, and then we're just more present. And so then we'll notice things like the sparkling sunlight when it hits our eyes, and we won't just think, oh, that's an annoyance, without even thinking about it. We'll just we'll notice it and we'll go, oh, that was nice, and then kind of look and say, oh, that was blinking through the trees. And and so that's where we really can kind of let these states become just a way of life, and everything becomes much more fun. And so when we practice these mindfulness meditations, yes, we're relaxing, we're trying to let go of the day, we're trying to let go of the stresses and all that kind of stuff. But as we practice them over and over again, and we just enjoy the sensation of the breath breathing us and our body relaxing, our shoulders relaxing, and just letting go of the stress, knowing that we're safe, reminding ourselves that we're safe, in a nurturing, beautiful universe. And then we can just kind of let go and drift into that alpha state, and really feel that gratitude, and that energetic nature of our being. And then we vibrate at different vibratory rates. We vibrate in a vibratory rate of safety. instead of urgency and apocalyptic fear. And that's what, if you look at the public opinion polls and you talk to as many people as I do teaching in public, a lot of people they have a really apocalyptic view of the world and where we are and where we're going, and it's not reality based and it's not science based. It's all media. The entertainment media. It's all fear based. By and large, and even the comedies. They have a theme of the evil world is trying to get everybody, and then there's some superhero or some super cop or some super FBI agent or CIA agent or somebody that's going to save us. And so we just get this pounded into our brains. And of course, the news does it as well. It always picks the most horrific things. And then it doesn't really look at solutions, and it doesn't really look at deep analysis, so that you can really understand what's happening. It's just constant fear and conflict. Uh, and it's all designed to do that, to release stress chemicals in us. I get into all this in the Gospel of Science, second edition. Yeah, they found that, release of stress chemicals, and then we get addicted to, there's kind of a high that you get from the stress chemicals. And then we keep coming back to that media to get that feeling. And so it becomes like an addictive thing that's not good for us because it's not reality based. And I don't want to get into this too much. It's in some of the other videos. If you go to our channel and look at some of the other video topics, you'll see this. But yeah, for example, the biggest thing that I share with the public so that they understand, what the media does to us is I ask the group, I say, who thinks the world is more violent than it used to be? And most hands raise. It's rare that somebody doesn't raise their hand. And then I tell them, I said, well, actually, it's not. I said, violent crime rates are at 40-year lows, and I have the FBI and the United Nations data in the Gospel of Science. And and again, what it shows is that violent crime rates are at 40-year lows, not just in the United States, but in many countries around the world. And people just don't believe it. Even when I tell them, they'll say, oh, like I was talking to a couple of yoga teachers and on a Zoom conference podcast. And uh, and I told them, I said, yeah, violent crime rates are 40-year low. I said, I tell my students that so that they won't be so stressed out. Because I do a lot of stress management in corporations and stuff, as well as Tai Chi, Qigong, meditation. And so they didn't disagree with me or anything about it. They're kind of nodding their heads. And then about 5 minutes later, one of the yoga teachers, one was in the United Kingdom, the other was in India. They started talking about how sorry they felt for their students because, who could blame our students for being so stressed? Because, the streets are just so dangerous. And one of the yoga teachers said, yeah, when you're walking down the streets, it's like you're afraid to look anybody in the eye because, you never know who's going to be one of those people. And, and this was 5 minutes after I said that violent crime rates are at 40-year lows in the United States and in many countries around the world. And so, I didn't pursue it because, I was thinking in my brain, well, maybe violent crime rates are going down all over the planet, but the UK and India are like these special cases. But after the program was over, the first thing I did was I went to Google and I said, are violent crime rates lower, uh, or I asked, what's the historical graph record of violent crime rates in India, and then I did the same thing for the United Kingdom. And in both of those countries, violent crime rates are at decades lows. So those yoga teachers, why did they think that the world was so dangerous? Well, it's because they watch the same fear-based news that their students are watching. And so then when they go in to teach their mind body classes and their students are sitting around, talking about the latest murder or and I'm not saying that the world is like perfect, but I'm just saying violent crime rates are 40-year lows. We shouldn't be thinking that the world is just all out of control and so dangerous and our neighbors, we got to watch out for them. We got to have all these gadgets to spy on our front door, all these things. If you have it, it's great. I know it's useful. It's got all kinds of things. I'm not putting it down or anything like that. But I'm just saying if we don't do it out of fear and we do it out of utility, that's two different frames of consciousness. And yeah, so violent crime rates are 40-year lows. And so these yoga teachers, and mind body teachers around the planet, I'm always talking about this because I want to encourage mind body teachers, be an agent of truth and reality. Yes, especially when it's going to lower the stress rates of your students. And so, and I know that this happens because it's used to happen in my classes a lot, where I'd be walking into the class and I'd hear students, talking, like I was saying, talking about the latest, murder or crime or something. And, and then, somebody would kind of sigh and throw up their hands and, go, oh, yeah, the world today, like that. If you haven't heard those conversations, you haven't been listening to people talk. And if you look at the public opinion polls like I do, I've studied sociology in university, you realize people, yeah, most people think the world is much, much more dangerous, much more violent than it's ever been before. And it's just not. It's way safer than it's been in most of our lives. And and so these yoga teachers, they were gonna, I could tell that they were gonna continue to do that with their students, to just kind of, yeah, oh yeah, the world is so bad. Well, let's meditate anyway. See if we can, just kind of cheer up in the middle in the middle of this apocalyptic scene that we're all living in that doesn't exist. That doesn't exist. That there were so many reasons why I wrote the Gospel of Science second edition, but this was one of them because I was just seeing how the media was making my hospital students sick. The ones that like immerse themselves in the mass media all day long. Because a lot of them were sick, so they were at home. And and just watching the news, and the news just pumps you full of this. I actually kind of had an epiphany where I kind of went through like a nervous breakdown, where I just getting really stressed. I was watching the news, during the lockdowns. I mean, really, that's all we had to do. We were all stuck at home, and the news was making it seem like if we didn't watch it constantly, we were going to all die the next day from some horrible development. And so that's what we all got glued into. And yeah, it kind of fried my nerves. And then I just turned it off and I started getting out into nature and started meditating, doing Tai Chi, Qigong, started going to the gym, shooting baskets. And and then I decided to work on the second edition of the Gospel of Science. And when I started rereading all the science from the first edition of the Gospel of Science, I was thinking, oh my God, why wasn't I doing this stuff instead of sitting there watching TV all day long, watching the news all day long? And I mean, it just made such common sense, once I looked at the science. And so that got me to, want people to get immersed in this science, to get out of this dismal, false, apocalyptic view of the future of the planet. And the science shows that when we go into states of connection and coherence, that it echoes out from us and it affects the community around us. And they did a study see, I got a chance to teach in Folsom Prison many years ago. And I thought I was going to be introducing them to meditation and Tai Chi. But when I got there, I found out that they had a Tai Chi Cha program for 2 years before I got there. And I ended up spending some time talking to one of the inmates who was like an assistant teacher, James Heckle. And he actually got out of Folsom and became a Tai Chi Cha teacher. But anyway, he was observing the prison statistics during the 2 years of that program. And what happened was the return to prison rate for the people in the Tai Chi Chuan group during that 2 years, it went from 70% return rate, which is the normal return rate for prisoners, down to 30%. And so we could virtually be emptying our prisons. But the thing that really caught my attention was that the behavior rate for the entire prison had improved during that 2 years. So not just for the Tai Chi Cha meditating group, but for the whole prison, because our consciousness doesn't stop at our skull. It echoes outward. In fact, it's even non-local. They've done research that shows that our consciousness can affect things on the opposite side of the planet that are in like hermetically sealed chambers, that have no, you know, energy or anything coming through that could disrupt the experiment. And so our consciousness has the ability to, do these amazing things. Yes. So by getting out of this false, dismal reality and getting into a more coherent, reality-based reality, and letting ourselves just let go and just enjoy the sensation of breathing and feeling, just the sensations of the body. And as we get more adept at it, we become more and more aware of this energetic nature of our body We kind of let go of this kind of grippy, tight feeling of ourselves and allow space through our heart and our mind and through our body and through our field. And we start to feel kind of a tingly awareness throughout our whole body all the time. You can feel it. I can show you how to feel it right now. What we're going to do is we're just going to clap our hands together like this, not like this, but like this, where they're totally together, and do it real fast and real hard for a little while. So let's go ahead and just do it right now. Just go for it. Put your awareness in your hands. Really feel it. Okay, now. Okay, feel your hands. Feel that tingly lightness. Okay, some of it's blood, yeah, but it's also that energy, that life energy, that prana, that chi, that bioenergy, as science calls it, emanating through. It's reestablishing its expanse, and it's actually even permeating more by the energy because of that, what we just did, that activity. It generated a lot of electricity and, really got things moving. And so you're feeling that tingly awareness of your being. And so the more we practice these things, the more it becomes apparent that we're an energy field and an amorphous field of limitless energy. And uh, I had felt that, but then I was at a Noetic Sciences conference started by astronaut Edgar Mitchell. He did some consciousness experiments when he was going around the moon in the Apollo program. And he ended up founding the Noetic Sciences Institute. IONS, Institute of Noetic Sciences, and they study human consciousness. And so I was at one of their conferences in Boulder, Colorado, and there was a woman there that taught meditation, but her career, her bread and butter career was uh, physics. And she caught my attention when I was walking through the room where she was speaking, when she said that when we go into these meditative states, a lot of times when we're done, we feel larger and lighter, more open. And she said we tell ourselves that's a hypnotic delusion, that we deluded ourselves into that. But she said, actually, what I can tell you is that when you're in that state, as a physicist, I can tell you when you're in that state, that's when you're feeling the most real. And she said that if you could take a atom and you could make it large enough to see, uh, the nucleus of that atom would be the size of a BB on the 50-yard line of an American football field. And the electrons going around it would be the size of dust motes 50 yards away in the end zone. And so everything in between that BB and that dust mote is just empty space or potential energy field. And she said that, to really bring it home to us how spacious and open we are, she said if you could somehow get rid of all that empty space and smush all the subatomic particles together, the whole of humanity, the entire human race, would be about the size of a grape. And so when you think of it in those terms, it's almost like you could feel the wind blowing through you. Very effortless, just kind of lightness and openness. And so that's our real natural state. So when we're out in the world and we're feeling tight and constricted and small, uh, a constricted sense of being is what I call it in my classes, that it's so easy to slip into, with just everything going on and us being in our mind, brains all the time and, feeling pressure and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things that really came home to me as I started to the science got me to throw myself into the mind body stuff because as I'm just being immersed in this, my book's 700 pages long and it's all meticulously endnoted science, packed with science on the power of consciousness and the power of mind body to unleash the consciousness. And so all that just threw me back into, really, practicing my mind body practices because I've taught for 50 years. And there were times when I was just doing it because I needed the paycheck. I was misbehaving and, not really into the practice or anything like that. And, and that was kind of hard on my health. But when I put this second edition of the Gospel of Science together, all this science, it was just so overwhelmingly influential to me that I just made mind body like the core of my life. And so I have to make sure that I get my mind body stuff in there. And man, it just had these huge ramifications in my life. Like one of the things that happened was I started going to the gym to get away from the computer because when you're writing a book, it gets pretty intense and tedious, editing and all that, technical stuff. And so I just started going to the gym, get away from the computer, and I go down there and do a little Tai Chi and Qigong stuff. But then I started shooting baskets, just so I'd have a little time away from the computer, just doing something. And I was always horrible at basketball in school. I tried out in junior high, and I was so horrible that I virtually never picked up a basketball for 50 years after that. Once in a great while, if I was somewhere at somebody's house and they were shooting, I'd shoot a couple of shots. But if I hit the backboard, I felt like that was a big success. But then what happened was there was this little kid and he was standing in there, me and him were the only ones in the court. And I noticed that he never missed. I mean, he never, ever missed. And so I went over and asked him, I said, how do you do that? And he goes, oh, he said, I'm a free throw shooting champion. He was about 11 years old. And I said, yeah, but how do you do that? How do you shoot and not miss like that? And he looked kind of confused at first, but then something kind of sunk in his mind, and he started explaining. And he said, "Okay," he said, "this is what I do." He said, "I relax my body, like when I'm bouncing the ball on the court. I relax my body, and then I just let the shot come up out of the earth, up through my feet, and up through my relaxed body, and out through my relaxed hand and fingers. And if I'm relaxed the whole time that it's going through, I know that I made it." Right when it leaves my fingers, I know that I made it. But if something tightens in my body, then I know I'm going to miss it. And so I started employing this because what I realized when he told me that is they said, "Oh my God, that's what meditation and Tai Chi, probably yoga too." I have little experience in yoga. I'm not a yogi, but probably yoga too. If you do it in this frame of mind, and it's relaxing. Relaxing around the forms in Tai Chi or the postures in yoga, and and so you're practicing kind of letting something flow through you that's larger than you. And this is in science, they detected what's called an increase in gamma wave consciousness when we practice mind-body practices regularly. And that's a higher, more coherent state of consciousness where we experience and do things on a multidimensional level, like a heart-centered level as well as, a mind or consciousness level. And so, for example, when I'm shooting, it's like I'm in that heart-centered consciousness. I'm feeling that shot come up through my body. And so, within a week, my free throw average went from about 20 or 30% up 30% on a good day. It went up to about 70% just within a week. And but that I kind of stayed around, 70, 50%, depending on how focused I was. When I would go to the gym occasionally, because I wasn't going for years, I kind of stopped going. But then more recently, I started going to the gym again, and I started shooting baskets again. And that's when when I was working on the Gospel of Science, second edition. And so I was being immersed in all this science, these brain scientists and consciousness scientists explaining the profound potential of this stuff to kind of unleash our consciousness to be able to do things that we would, normally wouldn't think were possible. And at the same time, just throwing myself back into mind-body practice. And so I started shooting, and I thought, I'm shooting pretty good these days. Kind of in the back of my mind. But I mean, I was still missing shots. I still miss shots. But one day I went in to shoot, and there was a couple little kids, a couple 11-year-old kids, I think. And one of them elbowed the other kid and pointed at me, and he goes, "Hey, there's the guy that never misses." And then I thought, wow. And so then the next day I brought in my phone and I recorded myself shooting. I shot a whole bunch of shots. I shot like 50 shots. And then I went home and I looked at my statistics, hits and misses. And I was out shooting most of the NBA. I was shooting free throws. Yeah, the NBA average was 85%. And I think I made 46 out of 50. And so that's way above most of the NBA players, and that's their practice average. 85% is their practice average, not their game average. And so that really blew my mind. And and it's just, I feel like Harry Potter. It's the most amazing thing because I was so horrible at it before. That's why. If I was one of those prodigy basketball kids, it wouldn't be as amazing. And so, yeah, this mind body stuff and becoming aware that we're a part of an endless field of connected energy. And then the other thing the Gospel of Science explores is the nature of the universe and how we connect with it. And what you start to find is that the universe is a nurturing place. So not only is the planet Earth less violent, violent crime rates are 40-year lows in much of the world, and nobody can explain why, but its mind-body has been spreading all over the planet. And so you've got this energetic nature of the universe, and our consciousness affects that. And so the science shows, the TM Foundation research showed that when they brought in the equivalent of 1% of a city's population, uh, uh, it brought the violent crime rates down significantly. The first study they did was in Washington, D.C., and they brought the violent crime rates down 23% in high crime season, with 1% of the population high level meditators. And so that's the Folsom Prison research led me to the larger research on transcendental meditation in cities because I saw those inmates had affected the whole prison. And so then I found out that 1% of meditators in the TM studies dramatically reduced the violent crime rates for the whole city because it brings the whole city into a more coherent consciousness. And so people are less likely to do things that would lead to their committing a violent crime, or emergency room visits also go down when you have 1% of high level meditators. And so when we go into these states, not only are we providing a really healing and ultimately making everything that we do more fun, because as we become more mindful and more conscious of gratitude consciousness and really feeling the beauty of things, really being in the moment, really present, everything becomes much more entertaining. Food tastes better. That hot shower hitting you on the shoulder feels way better because after I go, oh God, that feels so good. Then what happens is, I don't know, my consciousness opens more or my body opens more to it. And then it feels like 10 times even better. After I go, oh, thank you. Oh, that feels so good. And again, you don't have to be religious. You could be thanking the universe or just thanking the luck of nature that you are in a place that has a hot shower and you can feel that on your shoulders. Because a lot of people in the world would, feel like they were in heaven if they could feel something like that. So it's good to remember how lucky we are, to have everything we have. If we have food and, have a warm, dry place to stay and sleep, in soft beds, and really just enjoying these things. And so, yeah, these spiritual traditions, they were trying to, tell us to be grateful and also to be kind. Like I was saying, the science shows the universe is nurturing. And what science shows is when we do things for the greater good, to help others without any personal, repayment of it, it actually has a healing effect on our DNA expression. Our DNA expresses in a more healthful way. And there was research done at Princeton Engineering Anomalies Engineering Research Lab, and they studied consciousness and aspects of it in different ways. And one of the studies they did was they had a square room that was a dark room, and then in the dark room, they had a grow light that was suspended from the ceiling, and it was attached to a random event generator. And so, random event generators, they would normally send this grow light into each of the four corners 25% of the time. That's statistical reality. If you didn't have that, you wouldn't have Las Vegas. You wouldn't have any casinos. They have, yeah, that's a reality, that's statistical reality when you have it random on a random event generator. But what happened was they put a living plant in one corner of the room. And what happened was that random event generator started sending that grow light that living plant needed in that dark room for sustenance. It started sending it to the corner where the plant was much more often than it should have statistically. And so, what does that tell us? Well, it tells us this: the universe is a nurturing place, and then our DNA heals when we help others. And compassion, it's a natural state within infants, and they're like in a deep meditative state, up to about 2 years old. They're in that delta state, that deep, almost, I mean, sleep state, really, for most of us. And and so they're just naturally compassionate. And when we practice mind body practices on a regular basis and we let go of our grip and our squeeze on ourselves and we just let the mind let go and open, one of the things that happens, and we're just feeling safe and, not aggressive or anything, just kind of pleasantly enjoying breathing and feeling and letting go. The empathy and compassion parts of the brain get larger, and the fear and stress parts of the brain get physically smaller. And so we're actually re-engineering our physical brain as our consciousness starts to change its vibratory rates. And so that we don't wallow in states of fear and angst and, desolation, and rather more in states of gratitude and, heart-centered, enjoying the experience of our existence. And so one of the things I do in my Tai Chi classes is I try to tell people, if you want to have a successful Tai Chi mind body class, when you come into the class, just notice, how beautiful the world looks out the windows. We have like big, huge windows, ceiling to floor windows in the studio place where I teach, and just notice how beautiful it is, or just hang out and enjoy the people around you. Notice how interesting and beautiful the people around you are. And so then you'll be in that state of gratitude consciousness and heart-centered consciousness, just kind of being present, feeling, experiencing. And then when the class starts, then you're in the state that you will be most optimally benefiting from the class. Whereas if you come into the class and you just sit there in your seat and you're like looking at your watch and you're thinking, man, when are we going to start? And then yeah, one of the things I have to be honest with you, one of the things that I noticed is since the pandemic, and I bet I know this is the case for mind body teachers all over the planet. I've talked to several of them. What people are dealing with is post-pandemic stress disorder. And I'm not saying, you're defective and you're troubled by it. I'm saying we're all affected and troubled by it. But mind body practice, it gives you one of the things it does, it gives you a chance to practice just being present and being aware of how you feel and how things make you feel. And then being more clear and open-minded. And so then I was led to the science on post-pandemic stress disorder. And yeah, it was very traumatic for us, to be ripped out of our normal lives and to have our not be able to see people's faces. That's a huge part of our, consciousness is seeing faces and reading faces. And and for children especially, it's a huge thing, but for adults as well. And then the other thing too was that we went through this period where we saw other people as not our kindred spirits and brothers and sisters as much as potentially infectious enemies because there was just so much fear going on, and the news was like really hyperbolic because they knew it was really bringing their ratings up. And so, because they knew how the stress chemicals worked. And I have all the science and everything. This is conspiracy theory. This is economic reality. You get more viewers, you get more money from your sponsors, you make more money. It's just capitalism. But yeah, that fear was really getting amped up, during the pandemic, and uh, and so it's affected us. And then also a lot more people were watching media and still continued to watch media for a long time after that because the intensity kind of programmed us into it, and the stress chemicals and the addiction that we get from watching it. And so, and I know because I teach and I get students all the time that go, oh yeah, yeah, turn on the news first thing in the morning. That's how I start. Cup of coffee and the news, and then a lot of them, it goes on all day long, if they're retired. So, yeah, so I wrote the Gospel of Science because I had to set the record straight. And that is that we're living in a nurturing universe, and the violent crime rates are at 40-year lows. The planet Earth is vastly less violent than it's ever been before in human history, and all this data is in the book. And again, the universe is a nurturing place. And when we enjoy the universe and we enjoy the people around us, and we walk around and doing more of that gratitude consciousness and that heart-centered consciousness and being present and enjoying the experience of our lives or the people that are in front of us at any given moment in our lives, or the beings or creatures, or endless beauty of nature around us. when we touch into those things and we vibrate at that vibratory rate of that gratitude and heart-centered consciousness. It's a real healing place to be, and it just makes everything a lot more fun. And so if you find any value in these videos, if you can subscribe and like, our videos and subscribe to our channel, it's all free. And we have playlists, and on the different playlists offer different things. We have monthly discussion series where you can see this year long we spent doing podcasts with leading scientists in consciousness and the brain, which have changed my life. Like I said, with the basketball, it just showed me. I mean, I'm doing stuff that I would thought of as superhuman, like Harry Potter. And so, and the science shows it can unleash these things and the power of our consciousness to do things that we never thought we could do. And so it really creates a whole new life adventure for us to, explore these kind of things. And so, yeah, all this is free, the playlist with the scientists. And then also we have tutorials, and some of it's my teaching, but we also have other teachers, Dr. Bruce Lipton, Dr. Joe Dispenza, uh, and Yoga with Adrian. I have some of her videos on there. She's a great yoga teacher. And and then we also have a Change Your Life playlist. And that gets into dietary things like seed oils. Avoiding seed oils is a really good thing. And you'll see videos in there. You can look for yourself and do your own research as well. And then we have things on saunas. Saunas are so good for us. They're a great antidepressant. And so just all kinds of things like that, as well as, some mind body practices that you can play with. But I always encourage everybody find local mind body teachers because it's good to have like a local group and have that affinity. And then there's a group energy to it when you go to those group classes, public classes. And that's another thing since the pandemic did is most mind body teachers really got kicked in the head because people don't go. They're not coming. It's starting to kind of come back a little bit, the classes, but it's nowhere like it was before. Before the pandemic. I mean, my classes, some of them would kind of they would get too full. They'd have waiting lists, and it's nothing like that now for teachers. And so yeah, it's good to patronize your local mind body teachers because they've invested, many of them decades in pioneering, how to process these emotional issues that we all deal with, and then share the stress management techniques of yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, meditation, and mindfulness. And so it's good to patronize these people and then also have like a local group where you have it's kind of, group therapy, really, if you can sit around and share your experiences, your mind body experiences. And you'll have a lot of really beautiful ones to share if you really dive into this stuff. So anyway, yeah, I am planning on perhaps offering some live online Zoom classes on a donation basis. So I don't want anybody to not to come if you can't afford it, because I know people are struggling. There's a lot of economic tension and stress going on in society. And so I don't want anybody to deny yourself this if you can't afford to donate. But if you can't afford to donate, I mean, I could use a few bucks. Tai Chi teachers aren't rich. And you can also, if you get a copy of the Gospel of Science second edition, that will help our efforts. We donate our time to organize World Tai Chi and Qigong Day for 26 years now, 27 almost. And then also we're volunteers organizing the Global Transformation Project. And so the money will go to a good use if you can afford to donate. But if you think you might be interested in the online live Zoom classes, and it's a mind body thing, it's a combination of different kinds of meditation, some Tai Chi, some Qigong, some, kind of yogic meditations and mindfulness practices. And, it's all designed just to, have a good time, just to spend an hour together, getting in a little meditation and a little physical motion. And it really puts you into a whole new state. So you can email me at wtcqd2000@aol.com. WTCQD2000 at AOL.com and put something about Bill, info on live online Zoom classes or something like that so that I'll notice it. And then if we get enough interest in that, I'll start doing it. I want to try to do it on Thursday afternoons, but if that's impossible for too many people, I may try to do it on the weekend as well. So you can email that and then go to go to our YouTube channel at Global Transformation Project. If you just go to YouTube, Yap on your TV, and then search at sign Global Transformation Project, and then you can utilize all of our free resources. And again, my Zoom classes, they're not designed to be your go-to be all mind body thing, because I hope that everybody will patronize local teachers, because there's some wonderful teachers out there that really need your support. But no, just consider mine just kind of an addition to the practice that you already practice. And teachers are welcome to come too, because I've been teaching in hospitals and in the Midwest for 40 years. So, I've got some good ways to kind of make it really accessible and science-based. So anyway, that's about it. Thanks a lot. Have fun.